Step 2, releasing negative habits, obstacles and triggers. As you may have become more aware now that you've completed step 1 and you've been journaling for the last couple of weeks and discovered more about what habits are becoming problematic in your daily life, you may become more aware that you have a negative habit of having negative self-talk, or maybe to worry about things that haven't happened yet. Perhaps you're becoming more aware of your habit to scroll social media. We talked about that in step 1. Or I wonder what else it might be that you've become more aware of now that you've been journaling that might be impacting on you negatively in some way. And not only for yourself, but have these negative behaviours or habits been impacting on other ones? And what did you find out? What did you notice? What did you become aware of as you journaled about the negative habit that you're wanting to release? And how is it impacting on those people? Have you been able to perhaps even begin having conversations with these people? Or is it something that you may be still keeping to yourself and not ready to talk to others about yet? Maybe you're still in some form of denial, or are you beginning to become more accepting that you do have a negative habit that you're needing to release, because it's not only impacting on yourself, but those that you love that are important to you in your life. So in this step, I want to talk to you about the triggers and the obstacles that you may have become more aware of while doing your journaling over the last couple of weeks. So what triggers, what were some of the associations, the places, the people, the events, the expectations that you became aware of that are impacting on you? And the reason it's important for us to become aware of our triggers and the obstacles that are getting in our way, or we're getting in our own way because we're operating on autopilot. So what are the triggers, what are the obstacles that are preventing you or coming up in your life that are encouraging you to participate in that negative habit? And sometimes it can be other people's behaviours that might be something that you need to take into consideration. Once you become more aware of those obstacles and triggers, it's really good because it empowers you to choose to do something different. So you can plan around, okay, well, I know that, there's this event coming up and I'm likely to be feeling a little bit anxious at that event. So I might be smoking more, or I might go, I'm not going there because, that's my habit. I avoid those people. Okay, but what if you were aware that they were going to be there and you could plan to go anyway? Now, some of the habits that I wanted to talk to you about, and this is a really obvious one, and it's an alcohol one. Yes, alcohol, not only a habit, it can also become an addiction as well. So we've got to be very, very careful about that, because then that opens up other avenues in our life that can really impact on us in many, many ways, and other people as well. So let me give you an example, and I like using the alcohol one as an example because it's something that has become such a cultural norm that for the most part, growing up, and you may have been in the same situation as well, you may not have become aware of just how easily it's been absorbed into becoming part of who we are, part of our culture. And it's like growing up, we've been primed, our neural pathways have been primed that that's what we're going to do when we grow up, because this is what we've been associated with, this is what we associated with certain events, or this is like the society's expectation. For example, you see the grand final that's coming up soon, it's September at the moment, in Victoria, Australia. So the grand final and the finals coming up, and what you're likely to see across the TV screens all across the nation will be people celebrating the grand final at the end of it and being showered with alcohol. Similarly, the Formula One, when they're drinking champagne out of a shoe or a trophy, or being sprayed with alcohol. Tour de France, and so on and so forth. So it becomes not only a cultural norm, but also the really concerning part is that it becomes a cultural expectation. that is something that we do. Some of the other little less obvious, I guess, more passive ways that this lifestyle and cultural norm can be handed down are in little sayings that are habits as well, such as if you don't drink, you don't smoke, then must be something wrong with you. I wonder, what was going on for whoever created that saying in the first place. What was going on for them? Do you think maybe they might have been trying to rationalise their own negative habits? I think so. I think it's really likely that that's what they might have been doing, trying to rationalise and justify their behaviour. And quite often you will find that in couples that I work with, there'll be one in the couple that might be a little bit defensive, and quite often, instead of taking the blame for something, might put the blame onto the other person, that they've done something wrong. And that's why, they've decided to drink, or that's why they've decided to avoid the situation, or that's why, they've gone out with their friends, or that's why they've done some negative behaviour or said something because it's the other person's fault. Now, that's really, really a negative behaviour, and it's so easy to fall into the trap of that becoming a habit as well. So being aware by journaling about the conversations you're having and the habits that you're forming and falling into gradually, bit by bit, each and every day, journaling about that will make you much more aware of how you're responding and reacting on autopilot in different situations. So I've just recorded an audio that should help you with that if that's something that's going on for you. Or perhaps your habit might be to stonewall or complain about the other, criticise the other. So it's very unique to different individuals, but there's some core similarities out there that people fall into when they're trying to protect themselves and they're feeling vulnerable. And quite often that will be triggered by something, like fear in some respect. And consciously they may not be aware of it, but at the subconscious level, that child self within you is calling out and saying, I'm scared, protect me, and do whatever it takes. And it reverts back to a trigger response of something that worked, a long, long time ago, that you've become habitually falling into. And now it may be impacting on your relationship in a negative way. So in step one, we talked about becoming more aware and journaling, and the important message in step one was also about you becoming aware of your why it is you need to release that negative habit, okay? So you've become more aware of why it is you need to release that negative habit. And this step, what I want you to do is to go back over some of the things that you've written in step one, go back over your journaling, and look at the times when that was going on and unpack that. Think back to what was going on over the last couple of weeks and identify what was going on at those times. What else was impacting on me when I participated in that negative habit? When I reacted to my partner in a negative way? When I drank alcohol to excess? When I listened to my inner critic and participated in negative self-talk? Or I avoided a social situation because that's the norm. So what is it that is your go-to? What is it that you usually do to handle those kind of tricky situations that may be making you feel uncomfortable simply because you've formed a habit of dealing with difficult things in the past, and now you're associating that across the board into other areas of your life as well? And until you begin to unpack it deeply by journaling, a lot of this you may not have been aware of in the past. So hopefully you're already becoming more aware of what's driving that and how that's being associated across different areas of your life. For instance, if it is an avoidance type behaviour, that could be alcohol as well. You're drinking alcohol to avoid that feeling of discomfort and lowering your inhibitions, which is never a good thing. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about in this step 2, which is identifying the triggers and obstacles, is for you to become more aware of what the obstacles are for you to releasing this negative habit. So what is it that's your real challenge? What's going on there? What would you need to become aware of that's going to be that hurdle that you need to get over? What are the obstacles? If you can become more aware of the obstacles that are going on in relation to that negative habit that you're wanting to release, you can be more likely to predict future situations when that obstacle may arise for you. So what I do with my clients when I'm working with them is I've got what we call a weekly progress tracker in our folders, and they simply fill that out at the beginning of the week when they're working with me, and identifying their goal for the week and what those obstacles might be that get in the way. So identifying those obstacles and having a plan around that. We'll talk more about the planning next week, but at the moment, all I want you to do at the moment is identify for yourself in the next week or 2 weeks, or whatever's coming up for you, however much time you've got to put into this, but give yourself time, there's no rush. If it's a habit, it's been going on for some time anyway, so a little bit longer, but you're becoming more aware, and this is really, really important part of the process, and I can't stress highly enough how important this is. Self-awareness is key, and journaling about it, knowing your why and identifying the obstacles, the triggers, and predicting when that obstacle is likely to arise or those triggers are likely to arise for you and what might be associated with them is key to gaining some control back over that subconscious brain that's controlling you at the moment. So some questions for you to ponder. How likely is it that the trigger or obstacle will present for you in the next week or so? So how likely do you think it is that this obstacle or this trigger that you associate with this negative habit is likely to come up? So if it's something that, say defensiveness with your partner or something like that, which may be a negative go-to habit, how likely is it that maybe, your partner may say something, perhaps, that you feel, a need to defend yourself about? How likely is it that maybe they'll say something that might be a little bit hurtful for you, that, you don't want to admit to, or you don't want to take responsibility for? Or perhaps it's avoidance. Maybe you've been avoiding a conversation with your partner. Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's cigarette smoking, drinking too many coffees. What is it? And what are the obstacles and what are the triggers that are really driving that behaviour and reinforcing it each and every day of your life? The next key question is, how will you plan to do something different? Now we'll go into that more next week in the next video. And how are you likely to be feeling about choosing something different? How will that impact on you at the time? And how long, what would the length of time be that might be associated with that trigger, that obstacle? Is this a challenging situation that might go on for 5 minutes or 2 hours? Maybe it's a weekend or more. Maybe you're going to be around uncomfortable people that your gut tells you, I need to respond in this way. This is what I usually do. But maybe you can learn to do something different by watching these audios. So identifying the intricacies of the obstacle, so really pulling apart everything about the obstacles and the triggers to releasing this negative habit. So the triggers are the things that reinforce it, and the obstacles are things that get in the way of you trying to stop doing it as well. So how long is the trigger likely to be present, and how difficult do you think it might be for you to do something different at that time? And that may already, just pondering that question, may make you feel a little bit of sensation maybe in your tummy or your breathing. What's going on for you right now as you begin to think about, okay, what if I choose to do something different? So if I normally do this, what's it going to feel like for me if I choose to do something different? It's probably going to feel uncomfortable because you're doing something different. And your brain, your subconscious brain, used to operating on autopilot, and enacting that trigger, that feeling, that trigger response to do what it's always done, that habit that you're trying to release, go into defensiveness or avoidance, or drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes or drink coffee, whatever it might be, or react in a certain way that's negative, that's just on habit loop in your brain. So anytime you do choose to do something different, it's going to feel, at the beginning anyway, a little bit uncomfortable. But as soon as you choose to do something different, there's going to be a reward for you. So I challenge you to give it a try. And just start with something small. It doesn't have to be anything too big. And it may not be the main problem, the main negative habit that you're working on. It might be some other smaller negative habit, and you can rehearse with that one before you get to the big one that you might be wanting to work on at a later time. So you can do that as well. And another thing I want you to think about is, how are you going to feel if you let yourself down? Or your loved ones? How are you going to feel if you let your loved ones down by not doing something different? So have a little think about that as well. I want you to continue journaling and answering some of these key questions to increase your awareness and predict the likely triggers and obstacles that may arise. And next week we'll talk about, or next video, we'll talk about the next step in the process of releasing these negative and self-limiting habits that might be keeping you stuck, hurting yourself or those that you care about most. So hopefully this is all coming together nicely. Maybe slow, you may feel like this is slow paced, but this is the pace that it needs to be to begin with at this time. And if you're wanting to find out more about me or my programs, visit the website, jacquelinehogan.com, or give us a call on 0490 458 522. Thanks for watching.